So in today's video, I wanted to do another paint with me. This time I will be drawing my friend SHAELIN'S character June. This painting was fairly easy to do and only took about 2 hours. Right now I'm showing you a couple of my watercolor supplies. In the Altoids tin is my Daniel Smith watercolor paint, which I showed the tubes of. I initially thought that I was going to use the Gonzai Tombi paints, but I just decided to use the Daniel Smith ones because I wanted to test out some more traditional Western watercolor paints. So for the sketching process, I used a colored pencil, which honestly I find forces me to stylize the portraits a little bit. I don't know why I end up drawing quite cartoony with these pencils compared to graphite. I can kind of render a more realistic face, but it took a lot of time to kind of get this the way I wanted it to. I found that the eyes looked quite weird and kind of bug-eyed in some areas. I think that I tend to draw eyes too large just because my personal art style is a bit cartoony. So when I want to go for a more realistic portrait, it tends to look a little bit weird. So I just kind of worked on making them smaller. Another issue I was running into was with the nose, because the reference I followed, the nose is she has quite a slopey, bulbous nose, but I made the nose a little bit long in the sketch at first, so it took a little bit to get right. I still am not sure if I prefer the original version of the nose, but I think the sketch ended up turning out alright. With watercolor, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, I find that having a good sketch is quite important because you can't really chisel in any new features. Like, you have to basically work with what you have because it's not an opaque medium. So it can be a little bit difficult to change the shape of the nose or the eyes without basically putting a bunch of darks all over it. I'm using is a flat square paintbrush. I have no idea what you would call that, but I had mentioned before that I wanted to start using like the square shaped brushes just because I find that they make the layering process easier, and this portrait didn't take any time at all to paint, so I'm kind of accounting that a little bit to this brush. I found that I was able to paint the skin really quickly compared to using a round brush. I did use a round brush in some areas, like for details, just where I couldn't really fit the flat brush, but I definitely will continue to incorporate that into my process. Skin tones, I have kind of gotten into a bad habit of mixing extremely dull grayish skin tones because I think I originally used to paint extremely fluorescent looking skin, so I started really taming it down. So for this skin I mixed red and yellow, and normally I would put like a blue inside to counteract the fluorescent kind of look to it, but I didn't this time, and I think it looks fine in the end. It doesn't look overly bright, and in between that I added layers of green. I think I have a little bit of a purplish grayish blue, which makes things look a little bit more interesting and realistic instead of having just bright orange skin. Throughout the painting, I slowly built up blush and pink in the cheeks and the nose. I find that if you go straight in with a pink just on the nose or the cheeks, it can look a little bit like the character or the portrait that they have a cold, and so it can look a little bit unrealistic. So to make this transition a little bit less jarring, I just built up those layers really slowly, and I think it looks much better than a lot of my previous portraits where I would just kind of slap pink over the nose or the cheeks. didn't really film the detailing process. Again, for videos, I find that I like to get really up close to paint, like when it comes to painting those, like the stray hair or fixing the eyes and things like that. So I did that off camera, but for the most part, the process is just a bunch of layering, and I'm really quite happy with the end result. But that's basically it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.